Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chaldean Cultural Center weekly discussion series that's being hosted with collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. And today I have two very talented men who are co-producers and co-directors of an award-winning feature-length documentary called Chaldean Voices, Miguel-Angel Soria and Peter Alkatib. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for having us.
And Miguel is like I said, is the co-producer and also editor and co-director of Chaldean Voices. He was born in Tijuana, Mexico, and immigrated to San Diego, California. He is an Emmy-nominated producer and a founding member of the Taco Shop Poets, whose work was featured on both HBO and PBS. Currently, he is the Director of Educational Content Development for Lifelong Learning Administration Corporation and National Nonprofit Educational Services Organization. And Peter Alkatib is a co-director and co-producer of the documentary. And Peter was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and immigrated to the United States at a young age with his family. He earned a bachelor's degree in microbiology from the University of California, San Diego, and will earn a master's degree in business administration from Point Loma Nazarene University at the end of 2021. Peter is dedicated to the promotion and civic involvement of the Chaldean American community in San Diego, and for nearly a decade, he has worked to provide socioeconomically disadvantaged youth and young adults equal opportunities for education and employment. Wonderful. You guys are active in so many needful ways for our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask a little bit about your backgrounds. So both of you were not born in the United States, right? Miguel,
No.
you were born in
Right.
Mexico, and Peter. So, you know, I don't know, I guess we'll start. Who's the oldest here? We'll start with me. Okay, so we'll
Definitely
start
me.
with Miguel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what was your experience like being born in Mexico to Chaldean ancestry?
No, actually, I do not have Chaldean ancestry. I'm Latino.
You are.
Yes, yes.
That,
I'm Chicano.
that
I
explains the
self-identify.
name.
Yeah, I self-identify as Chicano, but I'm Mexican American, and yeah.
And you were wonderful enough to be part of this project to make sure that
yeah, actually, yeah, incredible. I feel very welcome by the community, in particular the introductions that my co-producer and co-director Peter made, and we built some incredible relationships there. But I am an immigrant. I grew up in Tijuana for up till the age of 12, and then I came over here to the United States, actually right across the border to San Isidro, so which is the border town, and grew up there in the South San Diego essentially, and went to school. First went to a community college, Mesa College, and then I went to University of San Diego and received my bachelor's there in philosophy. Then I went to San Diego State for my master's in counseling and a couple of teaching credentials. Have been an educator, but did that for a long time, and I've also been involved in film and production. And but in terms of my background as an immigrant, I'll say this: my family on my father's side was originally from Arizona, and they were there before Arizona was still actually Mexican territory, and so they immigrated to Tijuana when the Prohibition happened. They were musicians, and so they had to find a place to play their music, right, and make money. And Tijuana was a booming city with kind of not really following Prohibition, right, because that was in Mexico, and so there was a lot of opportunities for musicians, and so they immigrated to Mexico, and then we came back, right, to the U.S. So that's our story, yeah, that's my.
Do you think that's the connection with Peter as an immigrant, and given the background of the community that he's representing? Was there that kind of connection? Peter, tell us a little bit about your background as a Chaldean American.
Sure. My like you mentioned, my parents moved here when I was really young. I was actually only a year old when my parents immigrated. It was a struggle as an immigrant. We left our home. My dad left his store. My mom left her work. We left everything behind. It was just my mom, my dad, and my grandma and me. And we came here. You know, it's difficult. You don't. My parents didn't know the language. I mean, they spoke minimal English. We lived with my uncle for about 3 years because we couldn't afford to live on our own. My dad worked with my uncle for a long time until he was able to find a job of his own. My uncle owned a store, so he was able to help my dad at that point. But I would go to school and I would come back, and it was difficult trying to get help from my parents because they didn't understand English. They could help with the math component, but that was pretty much it because math is a universal language. But growing up in school, the experience for me was trying to explain to people like who I was. Most people, you say, "Oh, I'm Chaldean," they're like, "What is that? I've never heard of what Chaldean is." So that has pretty much followed me my entire life, still follows me today. People don't understand or even recognize that Chaldeans exist just because they don't know. And the most difficult part about being a Chaldean American immigrant was around the time of the US invasion. Around that time, it was almost like it was scary for you to tell people that you were from Iraq just because of the stigma surrounding terrorism associated with people from the Middle East. And so that was probably the most difficult part about me growing up here in the US as an immigrant.
And I honestly, I can relate to like everything that you just said, people not knowing what Chaldeans, I didn't even know. And I came here later in life because we didn't really use that word over there, but and then on top of it, nobody knows what it is here. And that's kind of the opening of Chaldean Voices, is where you kind of go around and ask people who Chaldeans are, if they knew what a Chaldean was. But before I get into the documentary, I want to know the story behind it. What got you guys to, to pursue this project? What initiated it?
Miguel, do you want to take that one?
Both Peter and I were working at a school, the school that's featured in the documentary. And when we were approached to do a short film, actually, it was supposed to be, a 2 to 3 minute description of answering that question, what is a Chaldean? Because there was a charter school we were working at, and we had a board member who was just like, I keep hearing the word Chaldean. What is that? What does that mean? And Peter, was one of the I would say community ambassadors at the school, right? And really, just doing an incredible job bringing that connection with the community and the students and the school. And they knew I had a production background, and they said, hey, would you be, are you guys open to take this project on? We both jumped on it, and 2 to 3 minutes turned into a feature documentary, a feature film.
A very good feature documentary. I have to say, so when you were going around asking the questions, everything, I wasn't hearing anything that I hadn't heard before, except when the one person that said, they're very lazy people. And I'm laughing. I started laughing so hard at that. I mean, there's a stat about, because I believe it was a female, that she was just being honest in her view, right? But it was the total opposite, because people joke, I remember when I was running my brother's video stores, a family video store, and I was working 7 days a week, and people would come in on Monday, and because they had seen me all week, or including the weekend, they're like, do you sleep here? I mean, I used to be asked that all the time, and I would go full time to school, and I would do this and I would do that. And I had to really laugh at this, because you bring it up later and show how hard we work. Now I feel like in Michigan, and I don't know how it is elsewhere, but in Michigan, the more people, which right now has the largest population of Chaldeans in the world because of all the things that have happened in Iraq. And I feel like there isn't a more understanding, because people joke, people that are non-Chaldean say, oh, when I say, well, my husband is at work, and they're like, oh yeah, it's like that 48 hours a day work that you guys do. So they understand it. But when she said that, it really hit me that, oh, they probably, people that don't know who we are, that don't get to see whether they, live amongst us, or whether they watch a documentary like this or see a movie, how would they know if they see somebody walking around and seeming like we're slow paced,
Right.
if they don't see our inner world? And then I really liked how you started it off that way, but then you shared so many wonderful people. How many stories were in there? I was not counting them as do you remember the number of stories that you have of various youth that were
There were several stories, but I think there was a group of 6, and then within that group of 6, there was 3 that like were the dominant stories that we followed.
Yeah, it was very fascinating. One that also very much stood out for me was the poet, where despite his difficulty in the English, he put so much emphasis on poetry and how he felt like, he could use poetry to like make the world a better place. That really, really touched me. It was really a great documentary, and it's showing a side to our community that doesn't get to, is not portrayed as often. We've been, because of all the war and things that has happened over the years, we haven't been able to highlight that. One other thing, so I want to ask you, in the documentary, some of the experts talk about how, and I think like the documentary is about Chaldeans, but this could be applied to any Arab Americans, anybody from the Middle East, about how, in the media, and I didn't know that there were games that also like really dehumanize the Arab image, which creates really puts them in harm's way. My question to that is that we know what the media and other and the film industry, their participation, but what do you guys feel about the community itself? How have they not helped in that situation? If you can understand that. I mean, as creatives, yourselves, you created a documentary to kind of dispel the stereotypes. And we don't have enough of that. So how can the community, what hasn't the community done enough of? What does the community need to do to help dispel these stereotypes, and to, so that people can see us as humans and not have all these misconceptions?
For me personally speaking, as a Chaldean, I would say we need to share more of our stories. I mean, you talked about you mentioned that lady who said that we were lazy, and when we were filming that, I remember I turned to Miguel and I was like, we are not lazy people. That is not who we are. We are hardworking people. We do everything we can to provide for our families and our community. And the stereotypes, I think that has applied to many different cultures and ethnicities and backgrounds of people around the world, and just how they've been portrayed in different films and in the media. And fortunately, that is starting to be recognized now, and hopefully we can change that. But I think for us to help us in terms of the Chaldean community, we definitely have to share more stories, because you see these stories of the kids that we filmed. They are coming from a war-torn country. They are coming from difficulties, from trauma. They have so many challenges in their lives, yet they're still here, and they're trying to do everything they can just to get their education, because they see a future for themselves that's different from the history or the background that they've had, and they want that change, and they want to see themselves succeed, not only for themselves but also for their families. We're a very proud community, and so the sense of accomplishment is huge for our community.
Yeah, I just want to add, I completely agree with everything that Peter's saying. And as a creative, I think everybody's a creative, right? And now that we have all of these platforms, when I started in film, to have a camera that was decent enough to document, you had to spend tens of thousands of dollars, right? And now what you could do with an iPhone is amazing. You could film a whole documentary just with that, and the quality will be incredible. So probably higher than today's iPhone, higher than what we filmed Chaldean Voices with, because that was about 6 years ago, right? So that's how fast technology moves. But it's about just saying, the story has to be told. And there's so many stories, because one of the things that I do remember, when Peter was introducing me to the community, we would drive around and he would say, oh yeah, that's Chaldean owned, that's Chaldean owned, that's Chaldean owned, that's Chaldean. And it was amazing. It was incredible. I was like, wow, nobody knows this outside of the community. And so each one of those locations is a story waiting to be told. And so, I just say, just get that iPhone out and start doing it.
Yeah, because it does matter. I think celebrating our stories is an important thing, as other communities, including especially like the Latino community, the Black community, other communities have really understood the power of that and have used it very well. And I think that's something that we need to come on board and do it also. And one thing that I found very fascinating, so as the characters develop and they share how their struggles coming here, how they adjusted, and they really use their creative ways to, whether creative ways or through exercise, to get a lot of their tensions out and a lot of the traumas that they experience. But then there's this important story where these students are trying to get the month of September to be considered Chaldean month. And so there was this tension there as I was trying to see, like, is this going to happen? I thought that was, and I'm not going to give the ending away, because we do plan to do a screening of this documentary eventually. But without giving anything away, I found it fascinating that the one person that had the most resistance towards it was a Chaldean.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I don't know if the word fascinating is the right way. I also found it very frustrating, because I have seen that in myself and in my work, and I've gone to other communities, like when I, as myself, a storyteller and a filmmaker, and I have gone to other communities for some kind of support or and such, and they always would suggest that I turn to my community, and it was very hard for me to say, well, they don't really support this type of thing. So because of my loyalty for my community, I don't know how to express that, to say, well, I've gone there, but they don't understand, they don't value that, they don't. And as I got older, I saw what was happening here and why and how trauma affects us and how we see things, and how we, and coming from a country where it doesn't really, and this is the truth. I mean, we come from a region where creativity is not really like supported, it's not nurtured, and neither is too much individuality. And sometimes artistically, those are the two things that you need. So I gotta say, when it came to that was the part really, really hit me. And I don't know, what was you guys' experience with that? How did you feel? And what do you think that says about the community, or what we need to learn from it?
I don't know if I could answer the second part of your question, but in terms of what I felt in the moment, I just felt this like overwhelming sense of frustration, because from her standpoint, and I could see her view as well, it was that she did not want to build this how do I put it? She didn't want our community to have the sense that we think we're better than other people by encouraging this Chaldean American month. However, our viewpoint was El Cajon is our Chaldean community is pretty dominant in El Cajon, and so this was a way, especially from the students' point of view, to just showcase like, hey, these people exist here. They've really impacted the community in so many ways. They've done so much to help build the community. So why don't we just do something we thought was so simple, just to recognize that the Chaldean American community has done so much for the city of El Cajon and for San Diego in general. And so that's where I think that tension came in, but it was just so frustrating. Like, it's just, we thought it would just be something so simple, and it turned out to be much more complicated than we expected.
And how did you feel about seeing that, Miguel?
Well, one of the things that resonated with me right now was the theme of trauma, when you just brought that up. And I think that, it was an interesting path for our students, because this was something that was truly student, originated. And so they were the ones that said, this is the civic action that we want to do in a city that's predominantly Chaldean. And to have that recognition seemed like the most natural thing, but then to be faced with a level of institutional frustration or almost institutional trauma there was unfortunate, right? Because here we are talking to the students about these big ideals of democracy and civic engagement, but it's also the reality, right? Anytime you try any civic engagement, you're going to be faced with some hurdles. So in a way, it was a great introduction for the students, but yeah, definitely the frustration was there, I think, for all of us, even us just, being behind the camera. It was just
right.
very.
Yeah, that was that really was suspenseful. I'm like, because sometimes, that's the whole thing with documentary. You go in not knowing, are you going to just get at something that's kind of static? But so it was interesting that you're introducing the Chaldeans and all that. What that element was really, it said a lot also about the community. And I think that you're right, Miguel, that the exercise in itself, that's I felt like as I was watching this, I said, at the end of it, however it turns out, this was a very powerful exercise for them, and that they had the courage to know that they can voice themselves. And there's always ways around that. For instance, whatever happens during that setting, they could always come back, and there's always ways in this country that you can change things. So there's a lot of learning that was provided for the students. So yeah, I found it really, really interesting. And with this, I'd love to know, what are you guys working on, if you guys are working on something right now, and if so, what is it?
You gonna go first, Peter?
In terms of filming, we're not working on something currently.
Okay, or a project that you feel you'd like to share. That's a community project. Are you guys working on anything that's community related? Doesn't have to be Chaldean related either. Just curious.
For me, it's just working with students currently, and I had found a passion for this work that I didn't realize that I had, but it just brings me so much joy to be able to help students. A lot of students think that if they come from a certain background, they're not able to succeed, or they cannot have the same opportunities that other students have. But for me, it's just about showing them that there are ways to achieve whatever goals that they have, and helping them get there is everything to me. I just recently found out a couple of the students that I had worked with at the school with Miguel have now graduated with master's degrees. And when they came to us, they spoke almost no English at all. So to see them to go from such a place that they thought they might not be able to achieve those goals to actually achieving them. And one of them in particular is going to be working as a counselor and helping other kids who have faced or other students or young adults who have faced trauma, and help them go through the same experience that she did and achieve the same goals. That's everything. It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. It's great to hear that, Peter.
Very touching.
Made my day. Yeah. Personally, I'm working with the same educational system that was featured in the documentary. We also have a couple of schools out in Michigan in the Flint area. They're the Flex High schools over there. But we're a national program, and I'm creating content in particular in the area of trauma resilient educational communities. So really trying to focus on doing more creative content around that, and just educational and training content, both for students and for teachers. So, very happy to be working with that. And yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, when you watch the documentary and the young people do share, I'm glad that you shared that, Peter, of some of them, what they've accomplished, because you could see the passion in what they were sharing. And even the girls were trying to say, they had vision, they were strong. They said, I'm strong, I want to be strong, I don't care what people say I had. And they're talking in a way, and because that's the sense a lot of times when people wonder about why Chaldeans are so successful, despite the fact being immigrants and being here for a short while compared to other communities, like you mentioned, the Irish, they've been here so many generations, and for us, we're fairly new. But I think part of it does have to do with coming from such an area where we couldn't exercise our freedoms and our rights, and then you are given all this opportunity, and you are supported by people like yourselves and others. I know I was when I came, by these teachers that made me feel like I don't have that same fear that I have over there. So you're really nurturing the generations to come, and we really appreciate that for all communities, any Americans, not just for the Chaldean community. But do you have any last words that you would like to share from all this, particularly from the experience that you did on the film? Do you guys have any last words to share? And as I mentioned earlier, for us in Michigan, this has the largest population of Chaldeans in the world. So
I will just quickly share, we had talked about all the different stories and how do we get those stories out. And while Miguel and I were filming, there were so many stories that we could not add to the film. And we had talked about so many times, maybe we could do side projects, or maybe we could do different films and feature different stories. And we just were not able to do that because of timing and budget issues. But I think that's something that we really need to focus on, not just our community, any community, but especially the Chaldean community, because so little is known about our community. We have to find a way to tell more stories. And like Miguel mentioned, there's so many platforms for us to do so now. So we have to take advantage of those opportunities.
thank you.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly. Ditto to that. I just think that, yeah, stories need to be told. And, again, I thank the Chaldean community for just, letting me be a part of this process.
Well, thank you guys both. And as I mentioned, we are looking to screen the documentary Chaldean Voices. So just keep watching out for it. And thank you guys. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks
good
for your
day.
time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.